Hello, my name is Andy. How are you? Let's talk about the Faliscan language. Faliscan is an extinct Italic language and the sole documented member of the Latino-Faliscan subgroup alongside Latin, making it Latin's closest known relative within the Indo-European family. It is attested in roughly 355 to 450 inscriptions dating from the 7th to the 2nd century BCE. Ownership marks, votive dedications, funerary epithets, and pottery labels, with no continuous prose surviving. The script was a local variant of the Etruscan-derived Old Italic alphabet, initially written right to left, later shifting leftward under Latin influence. Its most diagnostic features are those separating it from Latin, while confirming shared ancestry. The pronoun echo against Latin ego. The future suffix fo against Latin bo. The archaic O stem genitive, osio, against Latin's contracted e. Preserved diphthongs, a in dative, such as oi in oinos, after Latin monophthongized them. Full perfect reduplication, fifiked or made, where Latin contracted fēcit, and the bipartite ku spelling for Proto-Indo-European labiovelars, where Latin wrote qu, and Sabellic shifted to p. A later innovation, the partial merger of initial f and h, produced alternating forms such as philea and hileo, or daughter and son, one of the most discussed problems in Faliscan phonology. Its principal scholarly treatments are Giacomelli's La Lingua Falisca in 1963 and Bacum's The Latin Dialect of the Ager Faliscus in 2009. The Falisci inhabited the Ager Faliscus, a compact territory on the right bank of the Tiber, north of Rome, in what is now northern Lazio. Their principal city, Falerii, occupied a dramatic tough plateau, roughly 1,100 by 400 meters, separated on three sides by gorge, 60 meters deep, and connected to the surrounding land only as its heavily fortified western edge. Despite their Italic linguistic identity, the Falisci were politically aligned with the Etruscan League rather than with Latin communities to the south, a tension that defined their entire history. They supported way against Rome in the early 5th century BCE and clashed with the Republic repeatedly thereafter, but proved resilient. The decisive break came in 241 BCE, when, following a revolt, Rome did not merely conquer Falerii, but destroyed it and forcibly relocated the entire population to Falerii Novi, a new settlement on easily controlled flat ground. This act of deliberate urban erasure severed the Falisci from their ancestral plateau, sanctuaries, and social fabric. The language survived in declining form for roughly another century before absorption into Latin by around 150 BCE. A small diaspora settled in Sardinia, where a town named Feronia preserved their native goddess, and where the only inscription in which the Falisci named themselves was eventually found. Falesque que in Sardinia sunt, or the Faliscans who are in Sardinia. The Falisci were an Italic people of debated ultimate origin. Ancient sources and modern scholars alike have questioned whether they were properly Italic or culturally hybrid, given their deep Etruscan entanglements, but the inscriptional evidence confirms unambiguously that their language was Italic, not Etruscan. Politically, they functioned as Etruscan allies, joining the Etruscan League and sharing many religious and material practices with their northern neighbors. They called themselves Falesque, while the Etruscans knew them as Felusces, and the Romans as Falisci. The community was organized around hereditary aristocratic families whose clan names appear throughout the inscriptional records: the Cotena, Tolupio, Caesios, and others, each identifiable through the Faliscan genitive of filiation, Fileo Caesiosio or son of Caesios, for example. Their social hierarchy included freedmen, designated by the Etruscan loanword Latni, confirming structural borrowing from Etruscan social organization. Personal naming was theophoric. Mamarcos and Marcus both derive from Mamars, their god of war. Ancient writers, including Pliny the Elder and Horace, associated the Falisci with the area around Monte Sorate, a sacred landmark whose far-leaping Hirpi priests, dedicated to the god Soranus, represented a cult the Falisci shared with their neighbors. Faliscan material culture was sophisticated, shaped by proximity to both the Etruscan north and the Latin south, producing a distinctive regional synthesis. Their pottery is among the most recognizable. Faliscan red figureware, produced from around the 4th century BCE, featured elaborate mythological scenes. The wine cup inscribed with foied vino pipafo depicts Dionysus and Ariadne in a composition busily named the Foied Painter Group, representing a local industry that adapted Greek and Etruscan models into an identifiable Faliscan style. Sanctuaries were the spiritual heart of the community. The cult of Eunocuritis at Faleri was specific to the Falisci and not found at other Latin shrines, producing the largest body of Faliscan votive inscriptions. The goddess Feronia, associated with groves, first fruits, and manumission, was another distinctively Faliscan deity whose cult Faliscan settlers carried as far as Sardinia. The city itself was architecturally ambitious, with tough walls still partially surviving, and recent excavations revealing a temple complex of remarkable scale. Burial in elaborate chamber tombs in the Cella necropolis yielded painted pottery, bronzes, and inscribed grave goods. The wine patera inscription, casual, witty, and almost certainly proverbial, baked into the glaze before firing, speaks to a culture in which literacy was sufficiently widespread that a drinking joke could be permanently fired into a cup for everyday use, a small but vivid window into ordinary Faliscan life. In the next part, let's listen to the beautiful sounds of their language. Numbers.
Oinos, du, tris, quatuor, quique, sex, septen, octu, neuen, decem.
Vocabulary.
Eco, med, foied, cra, que, vinom, donom, urna, fileo, arche, pocolum, pater, ara, ager, kella, lautni, vuotom, pipafo, carefo, fifiked, fēcit, deded, cepio, habia, sacro, mamars, iunone, curipi, cerese, herce, voltuno, aidilis, maro, mamarcos, cerios, caisios, lartos, pita, pola, pitos, voltio, marce, noios, liuia, lartia, vibio, tertia, olvos, caia, hostio.
Sample text.
Foied vino pipafo, cracarefo, eco urna mamarcos cepio, eco cerios med fifiked mamartei, feroniae donum deded, fileo caesiosio, iunone curiti donum deded, preto decenatuo sententiad, falesce quae in Sardinia sunt.